So this video is going to back up what I was telling you about the word power. So here we got this big protest coming up with Trump and all of that. And so I'm watching the video and they cue in on this character over here twice. Right here. This guy right here. Okay? They did that twice. I know what that is, and I'll tell you why I know what that thing was. Immediately I knew what it was. Because silly enough, when I was a kid in the 70s, there was a show called The Brady Bunch. And they went to an island and it was an evil statue and they found it in a cave, and because they found it, they had bad luck. Well, I knew when I looked this thing up that I was going to find something, but what I found, even though it was attributed to that, I found something even better, because there's something that's been pissing me off for fucking years, and I'm tired of it, and I'm going to set it straight at this point and reinforce one of my earlier videos. So here we got this on the back of a truck on its way to Washington, D.C. Why would you be bringing that? Well, it's because what it represents. Watch. The Tiki gods, primitive blah blah blah. Back in all the way, if you were busted breaking the law or kapu, the penalty was certain death. If you wanted to survive, you had to elude basically to another island. Many of the craven images, surrounding the island, housing the bones of the chiefs that protect the area with their power or mana. Now, why is that word important? And because this is what really fucking pisses me off. For years, the Christians have fucking used this Jewish story about how when they were in the desert, they had nothing to eat, and they cried to the Lord, and he sent manna to them. Well, we know what manna is now, don't we? It isn't what Jordan Maxwell said, mushrooms. Oh, they were in the desert, and the dew in the morning created mushrooms. No, it's power. So let's go over here and look in the King James Bible. What does it say? What do they allude it to in the Concordance, which is a book that takes his biblical words and tells you what they mean? Manna is from heaven, which goes along with the storyline of God sending manna down to the Jews, right? According to the Hebrew Bible, so manna is from heaven, according to the Hebrew Bible, and to Jesus in the New Testament. So we know that manna is what? Well, we know it's power, right? We know it's power. See, this is a story about power. And really, I hate to keep banging on about that, but I have to, because that's what it's about. Okay, so if it's a story about power and it's from heaven and to Jesus. So Jesus is power, isn't it? So then what I surmised when I told you that the story of Passion of the Christ is Passion of the Christos. Christos means oil. That means seminal fluid. That means orgasm. That's Yahweh. That's an explosion of energy. So you can draw your own conclusions. For years, this fucking word pissed me off, and nobody could tell you what it is. Oh, nobody knew what it was. The Lord just said it, and they ate it, and they were saved. You know, the more I look at this, it sounds like not only are the Jews in line with the archons, it's like they've taken on the same dietary supplement as the archons. A matter of fact, the fuckers probably are the archons. But my point is that they're equating power to Jesus, which is the passion of the Christ. It had nothing to do with the dude being hung on a cross. It has to do with energy. Okay, now let's get back to this over here. You got all of these bikers amassing. You've got the military amassing. You've got people being bussed in. Even if you wanted to look at this thing as a story of what's going on inside of a reactor, when you get a bunch of people together, or people go to Catholic Church, what do they call it? They're going to mass. When you go to mass, you get density. When you go to critical mass, you get a big bang. Okay, so let's look up and see what the difference is. Well, I was just reading about when you go to critical mass, there's some components that have to be changed. But again, going back to what I stated in the earlier video, that it's like they're reproducing what goes on in an atomic chamber, yet they're doing it with people, and different groups represent different things. Like going back, this whole mana thing, I just found that by accident. That has bothered me for years because of these stupid ass fucking stories that they sell to the people. Jordan Maxwell. Oh, the Jews were in the desert and they were mushrooms. I got news for you. I don't know of any mushrooms that grow in a motherfucking desert. Maybe there is. I don't know. It doesn't seem plausible considering there ain't much water there. Because I mean, last time I checked, and this is just a stab in the dark, the bitch about being in the desert is during the day it's fucking boiling hot, at night it's fucking freezing balls, and there's a lack of water. Okay? Mushrooms, unfortunately, like everything else on this planet, need a substantial amount of water to grow in a mass group. Maybe as a singular entity, one mushroom maybe doesn't need a lot, but you still need some water, right? So again, my point being, mana equals power. They're saying mana is Jesus in the New Testament. That means that Jesus is power. And that's where you get the passion of the Christ, the desire for the power. Again, they took a great story about a guy that gave up his life for you, and they turned it in, they gave you a story that has nothing to do with anything that's of any reality. Even though I do think Jesus was the dude, the way they gave it to us is bunk. It's bullshit. This place is about one thing and one thing only: power management. That's it. How they can get it from us, how they can fucking lie to us, how they can keep us blind. Yes, I know I said it was one thing, but there's many subsections to that. It's all about power management. How can we fucking make these people move or divide or conquer when we need to? Trump is the one thing. He's like a little radioactive isotope. He's like a fly in their ointment. He's fucking everything up. And because he's fucking everything up, he's getting us to follow him. Not fucking it up like a bad way, but we're like little tiny atoms. We're not doing what we're supposed to. We're not moving in the direction that they thought we were supposed to. And they can't control it. Because that kind of makes sense. If you think of people as atoms, we're all of a sudden we're following this other atom that's not doing what it's supposed to in the experiments or whatever have you. They're saying he's not a legitimate president. Well, what are you saying, that on an atomic level, that he's not an actual atom? And when I say that, it's like if they were speaking in a scientific term, not that he's actually an atom. I'm just equating one reality to another one. And so you see this pushback between the Republicans and the Democrats, but yet some Republicans are filtering over to the Democratic side. There's no reason this guy would have this on a tow truck going to Washington, D.C. They cued in on it twice, so you were supposed to see it if you understood what this thing is. Okay? I'm glad that I saw that, because I found this, which had been bothering me for a long time. So, might not mean nothing to you, but at least now you know. Again, Jesus is equated to power, not as a person, but as power. The passion of the Christ. There's two times. So I backed up my own work, and that's the end of this video.